Hi, everyone. Sorry to say there's no intro and there was really no editing. I did the basics with what I could. The technology troubles that I talked about in the episode continued to plague me all week and got only worse. So you can hear us how we are, warts and all. Enjoy the episode.
Hi, Kelly.
Hi, Marsha.
How are you doing?
I'm having a little bit of a hard time. So, all sort of technology related. I spent the morning searching for my phone, which I thought I had done the trick of leaving it in the bathroom again. I've done that a couple of times now. In fact, I'm not allowed, there are certain bathrooms that I'm not allowed to go into. Or if I do go in.
I'm sorry, that sounds really bad. Professor Locke can't go in this bathroom.
Yes, because there's just something about the place there that's there to lay your phone down that causes, or the keys, that causes me to lose my phone and my keys. So that in that particular bathroom, I just don't go in there because I've already had such bad luck losing my phone and my keys in there. Plus, I'm too embarrassed to go to the Lost and Found for that building again. Oh God. So, but this time it was not me leaving it in the bathroom. After I came home, I checked. I didn't remember that I could do this on the computer, so I came home to do it. I thought I had to do it like on Robert's phone or his iPad, but you don't. You just go, for an iPhone, you just go to iCloud.com and sign in. But I came home, I signed in, and I could see my phone, right? They let you can turn it, you can identify it as lost, so the main screen says that it's lost and gives a number to call, which I think is a great thing. What I didn't know, and then you can also see it on a map, like where it is. So I could see that it was still there in the science building where my office is, or the old science building where my office is, in the building where my office is. I could see that it was still there. And it actually looked like it was in the location in the building where my office is. But my office is on the second floor and the restroom is just right down below on the first floor. So, I couldn't tell. Maybe it's still in the bathroom. So I came back to school, looked in the bathroom again, didn't find it. Went back to my office, looked through my office again, didn't find it. And then I thought, okay, well, this doesn't pinpoint things to the exact square inch. So maybe a student has found it and is in class. But then it never moved. The phone just stayed where it was. The location really just never moved. And if it was a student, they would have not stayed in the building for that long. So then I thought, maybe it's one of my colleagues who has their office in this building. So I went to some of the women that I know and to see if they had found it. No, but she said, did you click the button to have it make a noise? I'm like, well, my phone's on silent. She said, it doesn't matter. If you do the Find My Phone, there's a button that says to play the sound. She says, and this is the thing I thought was the funniest. She says, I use it to wake my son up when he has his phone on silent. If I need to call him and wake him up. And if I think he has his phone on silent, I use this instead.
That's called a hack, right? When you do
Yes,
that.
I thought that was hysterical. She has a teenage son. So she calls, like from work, she'll call to wake him up because he's supposed to be somewhere. And so she's like, play the sound. So I went back to my office and I go on and I click on play the sound, and it's still showing right where it was. And I started walking over to check with her about, is this the thing you're talking about? And then all of a sudden I could hear the sound. So then I'm following the sound around and I end up back in my cubicle and I can hear it. She's there with me. We can both hear it. We can't find the phone. So here's what happened. Office chairs, the back of the office chair curves around underneath the seat. It has like a metal part, that goes from the back of the chair and then attaches the back of the chair to the seat. My phone had fallen out of my pocket and fallen off the back of the seat and landed on this like 3-inch wide metal thing that attaches the back of the chair to the seat. And I have a blanket on my chair. So I couldn't really see it anyway because it had fallen down and it was below the seat. But then there was a blanket over the top of my chair covering that up. So without the sound, I never would have found my phone. It would have been lost forever.
Yeah. Or if someday you got really, rolling around on your chair, it might have dropped out. But
Yeah. So anyway, that was my morning. And then my just when we first started recording, my trackpad on my almost 10-year-old computer is going. And so it like sticks and it won't like click. And so I was trying to push the button to get something to show on my screen when you said hello. And it's like, the button's not working. Oh no. So anyway, yeah, I'm having technology troubles anyway, just difficulties today.
Well, I'm just going to say quickly about losing things. I lost my car keys.
Oh no.
And they had the set that has the house key on there, and I couldn't find it anywhere. I've gone through all my pockets, pants pockets, every flat surface. Anyway, I was able to drive my car because I have a second it has one of those electronic fobs, it's the keyless entry thing. And there's 2 of them. But then I always had to remember to bring a house key with me.
Right.
Anyway, finally found the keys. I did not find the keys. My brother found the keys because they were in his car.
Oh.
In the side door, the passenger door up front. There's oftentimes there's a little care thing where you can put your maps and stuff.
Oh,
He said it was in there with a bottle of an empty plastic water bottle over it.
Oh no.
Now, how did they end up there?
I don't know. Would you have put them there?
I must have. I mean.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, it makes you wonder, maybe I am losing my mind.
I hate losing things. I just, it makes me feel so, it just makes me feel so bad about myself. And I know it has a lot to do with just, I lost a lot of things in my life. And it's a bad habit that I've had for a long time that I've mostly compensated for. But when I don't manage to compensate for it, it's just like, and I blow it all out of more proportion than it really needs to be. I mean, some things that's important when you lose them, it's a problem. And some things when you lose them, it's annoying, but it's not that big of a deal. But I turn it into this really big deal about my character,
Well, and I'm going to say there's things you should say to somebody and things you should not say to somebody who's looking for some lost thing. And I will tell you a story from my marriage and why I'm no longer married to Paul. Is one day I'm looking for my car keys. I cannot find them anywhere. And I said, and this is what I said, I'm always so good. I always just put them on that hook by the door. Because we had these hooks by the door where all the keys would go. And I said, I'm always so good. I always put my keys on that hook by the door. And he said, no, you're not. And I said, yes, I am. I'm really good. I always said. He said, no, you're not. Because if you were, the keys would be on that hook. Well, he's right. But that's not what you say to somebody who's running around looking for their keys and all upset and feeling bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
So, yeah. Okay, that's not nice to say.
And even worse, it's true.
It's true. Yeah, that's the thing. It's bad.
That's what makes it worse.
Yeah, you're not supposed to speak the truth at those times.
No.
You're supposed to lie and say, it's okay, you're fine, I'll help you.
Well, and the other thing that's really not helpful to say is, well, where did you leave it?
Yes.
Because if I knew that, I'd go there and get it.
Or to say, they sell these things you can put on your keys, so if you lose them again, your phone will find them.
Oh, yeah.
That's not helpful because I can't find my keys.
Yes, if you lose them again. Oh,
Yeah.
dear. Yeah.
Okay. Well, enough of that. Shall we talk something more pleasant?
Yes, like knitting.
Yes. So I think Kelly, we might our format might be just a little. Usually we just go what you're working on, what I'm working on, but we don't really have a whole lot to report. I think we should just start right in on skulls, and then we'll talk about what we're working on, because we both are working on skulls now.
Yes, let's do that. I think that's a good idea. Because I'm working right now, this minute, as we speak, on my skull.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're adding this now. Okay, so let's just back up. I'm doing Daphne's skull, which is the whole skull that you then piece together and felt. You're doing the sugar skulls, which look like little masks, kind of, right?
yeah, it's called Large Shaped Sugar Skull, and it's also by Ellen Sibelius. And it was great that we had that conversation about how to make the eye holes because I had to do the exact same thing on mine. The mask, the sugar skull, is interesting because you first knit the background. So it's 2 layers, and then in between the layers there's like stuffing pieces. So I had to do a background. And while I was doing the background, I was thinking, wait a minute, I'm not having to go down the eye holes. This is just intarsia for, dark yarn eyes. But that's the backing. And then once you make the backing, then you make the top part, which is probably very similar to what you had to make for your skull. Although the jaw is already attached. No, actually it's not attached. You attach the lower jaw afterwards.
So I have a question then. Do you take these 2 pieces and sew them together, and you put some sort of material like a filler in the middle of it?
No, I actually had to. You actually have to knit the padding pieces. So you have a forehead padding piece. So you have 3 layers for the forehead that are all about the same shape, and then you knit these 2. This is kind of funny about this pattern. You talked about the challenges of the pattern the last time. You knit these 2 triangles for the cheeks, and luckily there was a picture because the instructions say to arrange the triangles. I don't know, it gave some more wording than this, but arrange the triangles with the points facing down. Like, there's 3 points on a triangle. Which point am I supposed to face down? You know what I mean? It wasn't a like an equilateral triangle. You know, one side of the triangle was the bind off edge, and there was a point at the cast on, and there was anyway. So there's 3 points, right? So which point was I supposed to? So luckily there was a picture, and in the picture you can actually see the grain of the stitches. You know which direction the stitches are going. So I could get it to fit in there right. But I just thought, okay, there's an example. One of those things that Marsha was talking about. Like, I could read this thing about 15 times and I would never know which point is supposed to go down.
So you knit like a flat piece, which is the base.
Yes.
And then you're knitting all these.
And it has dark eyes and a dark nose. And then you knit the skull padding, and then you knit the cheek padding. I think that's it. And then you knit the top layer, which has eye holes and a hole for the nose, and it ends at the bottom of the cheekbones.
Okay, so then that makes it sort of sculptural.
Yes.
Adding these little pieces makes it kind of okay.
Yeah.
And then you felt it.
Yeah. Well, and then you knit, and then the third, and there's another piece for the top layer. That's the bottom jaw, and you sew the bottom jaw onto the top of the jaw, and then you put all these put all these pieces together. The other thing is about the instructions, and I'm not criticizing this. I think this is just like you. I think this is a genius pattern, but you do have to use your own sort of construction brain to do it, because it talks about putting the pieces together. It's like you sew the top of the forehead, you sew around the eyes, you sew somewhere else, and then it doesn't talk about all the rest of the places you have to sew it together. It's like the places where you need to make sure that you catch all 3 layers, and where there's some special instructions, it specifically tells you how to sew those pieces together. But you have to know that you are sewing all 3 layers together all around the whole edge. And if you didn't know that, you'd have pieces flapping open that you didn't. So yeah, it's it wasn't so as challenging as yours because it didn't have as many pieces, but it really did make me have to think. The knitting was easy and pretty short, but I did have to kind of think about it. And there were some parts I didn't understand. Like you said, there were things you didn't understand, so you just did it the way you knew. Like binding off, I couldn't always understand her instructions for binding off. The way she explained to bind things off.
I could. Yes, that's true. I couldn't either, and so I just
bound off in the regular way. And
and
I'm not sure if it would have added additional shaping, or maybe that's what she meant, and I just didn't quite understand it. But I would highly recommend this pattern, honestly, even with that, for somebody who's an intermediate knitter, who doesn't mind putting pieces together. There's not a lot of pieces, but there are pieces to this. Okay, and yours has a lot of pieces.
Mine has a lot of pieces. So I'm looking at Ravelry at your pictures. So I see your skull. Okay, so I see the base, and then I see now it's assembled before felting. And
so I didn't show.
Kelly, how did you add captions on your photos?
Oh, when you go into the photos, there's little. When you first upload them, you see like a little square to there where you can center it. There's a little trash can where you can delete it, and there's a little pencil where you can make a text box.
Oh,
when you first upload the photos.
I did not know that. Okay. I just learned something new. Okay, that'd be great, because I always say, this I always in my
in your
text,
notes.
In my notes, I say what the pictures are sometimes, and this is great, like showing it before and it's not you. Yeah, this is great. Okay, so I see how very sort of sculptural it is.
Yeah, it's very. I used our Raucous Rambouillet yarn. I had some that wasn't a full skein, and was undyed, and I used that. It really didn't felt as much as I thought it was going to. You can still see the knitting stitches. Like I'm used to things felting so that they, you really don't see the knitting stitches anymore. And this didn't felt like that. It's fine and it's nice and soft and fuzzy, but I was surprised that it didn't felt more. And I put it in like three rounds of washing in the washing machine. Because it just, I was watching it and nothing was happening. So I went all the way through a cycle and still it wasn't felted enough. And so I had it go through a second cycle. And then when it went through the third cycle and it still wasn't felted as much as I was thinking it would, I put it through again. So, and didn't even check it along the way. It's like, okay, this is gonna, but I was just, I was kind of thinking that the stitches would smooth out and you wouldn't really be able to see the knitting stitches, but that didn't happen with this yarn. And I think it might have been because I used 2 strands, and so it was a little denser. You need a little bit of space in your stitches. Your knitting needs to be kind of more loose maybe than what I had done. It was a little too dense and didn't have room to move around and felt as much, I don't think. But anyway, it did felt, and it's very sculptural. Yeah.
Okay. So, and now you're adding the embellishments to make it a sugar skull. Okay. And is that fun to do? Are you enjoying that?
It's all right. I don't know that I would want to do. When I first got the pattern, I thought, I could do, I could do a bunch of these because these would be good for gifts because they're not as much work as the full skull, and they'd be fun. But I'm not sure I enjoy embroidery that much. Or maybe it's just that I'm having to design the embroidery as I go. I mean, she had a pattern for the embellishments that I did not buy because I thought, I can make crocheted flowers and stuff. myself, which I didn't crochet flowers. I just embroidered them on, but so I'm kind of designing the design at the same time as I'm embroidering, and that's, I don't know. I don't know that I love it. It's fun, but it's not something I'd want to do, half dozen of these as Halloween gifts for people at work. It's not that kind of project. It's not that kind of fun. I don't like them that much.
Well, just so I know, it's kind of. I'm sorry, cause I hope we don't sound like we're being negative. I really don't, because I do really love this pattern and everything. But do you know how many projects there are of the large sugar skull?
Just one.
Yes, yours. That's it. Apparently, we're the only ones who are just fascinated by these skulls.
I do think it's fantastic, and I will. I am definitely going to make another one. I'd like to be done with the embroidery so I can take it and put it in my cubicle tomorrow. So we'll see. But yeah, if I was better, maybe if I was, it's hard to embroider on knitting because of the stitches. If it had come out, totally felted without the tracks of the stitches, I think the embroidery would be easier. Because you're having to go over those. I don't know. It's a little bit challenging.
Okay.
Well, but I'm enjoying how it's coming out. I think it's going to be really cute.
Well, I have to tell you about mine.
Yeah.
So I've got all the pieces done. I posted a picture on Instagram, and I posted a picture in the last episode in the discussion thread. I posted a picture. So I've got all of the pieces are done for the skull and the jaw. And there's a picture I posted just laying on the dining room table. And it's I find it amusing looking at it. But anyway, so then I was making really, really good progress. So good. I thought, I'm going to get this thing done by Halloween. I think I'll be able to do it. But then I started the teeth. And that's a whole nother story. So the skull is knit with bulky weight yarn on 10.5 needles. The teeth is sport weight yarn that's feltable on 000 needles.
Oh my God.
And when Kelly, do you remember when we were at Stitches West when we bought the skull patterns? I knew I did not have 000 needles, and so I went to one of the vendors down there. I bought the needles so I'd be ready to go. So I found them, and I went over to the yarn shop and I got yarn. I couldn't find yarn that matched exactly the color of the yarn that I bought from Ellen. So I think it's a bleached white, so it's more pure white. But I thought, it's okay because it's the teeth.
Yeah, they're different color anyway
maybe,
from the skull.
And maybe this. Yeah, and I thought, well, maybe that skull even, he had good dental care. He had a good dental program. So anyway, so I started knitting them, but they are a little fiddly. Where 10.5 needles, you're just whipping along now, but now you're doing on these 000, which I don't think I've ever used needles that small.
Yeah, I haven't either.
They're circular needles, and I finally. So the first tooth, I think you only cast on 5 stitches. And believe it or not, this little tiny thing, I think there's maybe 5 or 6 rows, but you actually do decreases. And I was reading,
that's
I'm like,
a whole
what?
new level of crazy.
I know. I was like, what? I'm doing deep. And so it's kind of interesting. You knit I thought they were going to be knit like a tube. They're not. They're actually, which is really good because I think it would be difficult to join that into a 5 stitches at that little into a tube.
Yeah,
but you knit they're so like the first one I think is like you cast on 5 stitches, and I think there's maybe 5 rows long, and then you bind off and you leave kind of a long tail, and then what you do is you stitch the tooth. You end at the top of the tooth. You bind off at the top of the tooth, but what you've left a long tail at your cast on, and you take that cast on and you knit from the root up to the top of the tooth.
Okay.
And then pull the yarn through that little tube that you've made, and it kind of makes a little bit of like a tooth shape.
Okay.
you know, and then what you do is then you take your 10.5 knitting needle and you kind of poke a hole in the jaw and sort of snuggle that tooth down in there and stitch it, sew it in. And I did the first one and I'm like, nope, this is not going to be done. I just knew. Also, I got sick. I got a cold and I didn't knit anything for about 4 days and I just did not feel good at all. And so I just knew it was not. It's like there's no pressure now. It will just get done when it gets done. So I think I posted a picture. I think I've made 5 teeth.
How many do you have to make?
32.
The real number. I mean, this is like anatomically correct skull.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's very, I really do love this pattern. I think it's just so, on so many levels, I love this pattern. I love the humor. I love the science.
Yeah.
I love the attention to detail. I love the way the pattern's written, even the part that I don't understand that I have to call you up. I mean, it's just been really fun.
Yeah.
I don't think it's for everybody. I think it's
right.
I don't think anybody can make it. I recommend it to anybody, but if you don't like things that are fiddly, and don't do it. It's because it's a little fiddly, especially the teeth are fiddly.
Yeah, I think anyone who didn't go back to the booth 5 times and look at them and take pictures of them and talk to her about them is probably not committed enough. Probably not should be committed. No, is probably not excited enough about doing it for the excitement to overtip the fiddliness. Yeah.
So,
well, I'm excited to see yours done. I know it's probably going to be a while with 52 teeth.
32.
I mean, 32. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I do have though, and I think I can't remember if we talked about this in the last episode, but when I sew it all together and I felt it, do I need to worry about the two flat? I mean, the skull, so the skull is hollow, right? And it's going to be stuffed. But, in the felting, do I need to worry about the pieces felting together?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I've felted slippers, like knitted slippers, and then you throw them in the washer, and that doesn't happen.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think you need to worry about that.
Okay. So, so my next thing is I will, I have not assembled the skull yet either because Ellen says in the pattern that it's easier to attach the teeth to the skull, to the jaw bones, before you sew the whole skull together.
That makes sense.
So, yeah. And I see with the sugar skulls, you don't have to make teeth. The teeth are just made with the embroidery. They're outlined.
Yeah, you make which
should be a little easier.
Yeah, a lot easier. You make a little piece that you then fold back on itself so they stick out a little. And then you embroider the edges, the black edges of them. Yeah. So no, it's really. I'm liking it. I mean, I definitely am. I'm definitely glad I got the pattern, and I'm motivated because I'm very close. I'm motivated to be finished by Dia de los Muertos. So yeah, I'll have it on my office cubicle.
And I'm trying to find... Oh, it's not in Ravelry. It was on Instagram. I posted a picture of the skull pieces on Instagram and talking about the teeth. And that was where someone commented that skulls don't always have all their teeth.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So it's possible not to make all 32.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That could give your skull some character.
I know. Yeah. So anyway, and already they're kind of jagged now. Well, I don't have them all on, as I say, I only have 5 on there, but they kind of stick out all over the place, which is kind of the point. That's what makes them so cute. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they don't. Skeletons don't wear braces.
Yeah. So anyway, do we have anything more to say about our skulls other than we're just kind of enjoying this?
Yeah, no, I don't have anything else to say. I am really enjoying it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So do you want to talk about the rest of your projects then?
Sure. I only have one other thing. Well, I finished those socks that I started in Seabrook with the little fish stitches yarn. So those are done, except I haven't woven in the ends, but they're finished enough that I can call them finished for today. But I also picked back up the Sonny Bono jacket.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, so
I'm so relieved.
well, and I went and got the bag, and I took it out to look at it, and I was like, oh, darn it. Because I don't know if you remember or not, but the last time we were talking about it, I said, oh, it looks like I sewed it together.
Oh, you were looking at the picture.
I was looking at
right.
the picture on my project page, because I hadn't, it had been just in the bag, put away. And I'm like, oh, I guess I sewed it together. I don't remember sewing it together, but maybe I guess I sewed it together. Or maybe I just cheated and took the picture like that. No, maybe I sewed it together. Looks like it's sewed together. Anyway, it's not sewed together. That was a cheater photo where I just put all the pieces together.
Excuse me. I got that cough from the cold. I have a question about sewing it together. Are you going to sew it together with the yarn, or are you going to sew it together? Okay.
Yeah, and
because it's so hairy.
Yeah, it even says that it's too difficult to sew it together with the yarn.
Okay.
I'm going to sew it together. I have some gray sock yarn, and I'm going to use that to sew it
Okay.
together, I think. So, yeah. But I have the 2 fronts done, the back is done, and now I have 1 sleeve done. I've made myself a little bit of a problem because I made the sleeve, and it's like, oh my God, the sleeve is bigger than the front. Wider than, I'm like, this is too big. This sleeve will be way too wide. So I measured it, and it was wide, and I measured a sweater that I have, and it was a lot less. So I used the sleeve to figure out what my gauge was, because I did not do a gauge swatch on this sweater. I just started it. And I mean, I don't think that I would have been able to do a gauge swatch anyway. But my gauge is different. And also I think the sweater is just made to be big. And the arms are, I complain when the sleeves are too tight, but I also don't need sleeves that are twice as big as they need to be. Plus I was worried I would run out of yarn if that was the case.
Right.
So I used the sleeves as a gauge swatch, did some recalculating to figure out how big I did want the sleeves, how wide, based on another sweater that I have. And so I did that, did my sleeve, did my increases, but then you get to the part where, because I'm knitting flat, you get to the part where you have to bind off stitches on the sleeve, and I thought, okay, if I do this, and there's no schematic for this pattern, if I do this bind off the way it says, then I'll be binding off too many stitches, because it's bind off 3 on each side of the sleeve to make your your underarm. And then I won't have enough stitches because I've already made it narrow. I won't have enough stitches to do the rest of the sleeve cap.
Right.
So, and then also the pattern says, decrease this many times for this many rows, bind off. It doesn't tell you how many stitches you're supposed to have at the end of that, at the top of your sleeve cap. So I had to figure out how many to bind off. So I kind of calculated and kind of made a guess. And so instead of binding off 3 on either side, I bound off 2 on either side. And then I'm in the place where I'm making decreases for the sleeve cap. And basically I'm going to just, I'm not going to decrease very much from there. I'm going to decrease a little bit. And I just have to make sure I make it long enough, make the sleeve cap long enough. Because after I change the counts, that messes up the pattern. And there's no real way for me to recalculate it without having a schematic.
Yeah.
I mean, I tried, but it kind of didn't. There's too many unknowns without the schematic. So anyway, I'm experimenting, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to fit this sleeve into the sleeve hole, because that's the other problem. So yeah. This is called off-road knitting.
Off-road knitting. Oh my gosh, that's funny.
So we'll see how it goes. I think it'll be okay. I mean, I know what the shape is supposed to look like, and the part that I bound off, I know where that is supposed to attach on the rest of the garment, and it looks like it fits. So I think it's going to be okay. But yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a I don't know what you call it, a fudge maybe. Mm-hmm. But I have a lot of leeway with this because it's just so furry. Mm-hmm. I was like,
what I keep telling myself about the skull is any faults will be hidden because it's felted. Same thing with that jacket because it's so hairy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. If there's any glaring mistakes,
right.
They'll be hidden with fuzz and fur.
And it's really stretchy because of the size 19 needle. So I do think I can get those. I do think I can get everything to fit in where it needs to go. So, yeah, we'll see. I'm excited to finish it. I want to finish it because it's cold enough to wear. And I also want to finish it just because it's the coolest jacket ever. Mm-hmm. So...
Well, you have to get it done in time for stitches anyway.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll be done way before stitches. I'm going to wear it at Christmas.
Okay.
To my mom's Christmas Eve party.
Okay.
I have to dig out that picture of me in elementary school, like 10 or something, with my jacket that looked almost exactly like this. But another...
Your second childhood?
Yeah. Exactly. I'm having my second childhood. It's the greatest jacket. When I saw it, I just, it was like, I was like, okay, I'm buying this.
I was shocked at how, because it was not inexpensive.
No, this is a splurge. Yeah.
It was a splurge, and I was.
And me buying hand spun. I mean, I would never buy hand spun because I can spin it. Yeah.
And you're just practical too. Like you don't. But every so often, the spirit moves you, Kelly.
Yes, I was definitely moved by this jacket and this skull.
Yeah.
So, and it's kind of good because we'll talk later about the fix it or nix it, but I already have a drawer full of things, practical things. Mm-hmm. Do I really need any more of those practical things? No, what I really need are skulls and furry jackets. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There was a definite gap in my life of skulls and furry jackets.
Well, is that it for projects?
That's all mine,
for
yeah.
you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I'm pretty quick too because I talked about the skull, and then I'm still working on the cowl by Anne Hanson, shared rib. I've been working on that on and off, and I like it a lot better than the scarf. So,
that's good.
And it's pretty easy because it's basically a rib with occasional cables.
Yeah, they cross over every so often.
Yeah, and I don't know if I've mentioned this, but what I like about the pattern is it looks good from both sides. It's been designed so you can wear it either direction, or you can have the cowl if it flops over a little bit, it still looks good.
Yeah.
So
that's important, I think.
Yeah. So anyway, that's coming along. I really like it. And then I'm still working on the socks for my brother out of the Regia, the Arnie and Carlos colorway. Mm-hmm. And I did in fact, I'm sitting here knitting. I finished the first one, and now I am just doing the heel flap of the second one. And it's, I'm doing the heel flap and the toes in the red, the solid knitted wit. So I'm working on that.
Is this one of their Christmas colors?
I don't know. Let me look at the tag here. If it says it kind of is. Well, it doesn't have any green in it. It's kind of got it, but it's very sort of Scandinavian looking. Mm-hmm. I think. Let me see if it even has a color on here. Like a name. It does not.
Okay.
It just has
A number.
It just has a number. 927. So
And that's their Christmas one.
that's their Christmas gift.
That sounds like a Christmas number.
That's funny. Anyway, so that's all I'm working on, and then I don't have a sweater on, and Kelly, I usually have a sweater on the needles. Excuse me. So I want to cast something on. I'm still thinking about Snowflower, the Heidi Kermeyer sweater, but I need to take my online color work class. And before I start that, and also, do you remember I bought just the body of the sweater is going to be in green, kind of a moss green or sage green, but I bought just 2 skeins of natural colored yarn that I'm going to now dye, and I need to do that. And that's kind of got me stuck right now.
Isn't it funny how something like that? Yeah, it's like, ugh, you need a project you can just pick up and start.
I think I think the thing is that I really want to do it, but it's one of those things that I need to just find a day to myself to dye the yarn, and I want to make sure. Well, I have in theory, 1 skein should be enough to do all the color work. If I divide it up, I bought 2. So in theory, if I do make a mistake and I don't like the color, I have more yarn that I could, and I can always buy more yarn too. I don't want to do that, but I kind of want to have a better sense of what colors I want to use. And then I know I want a red in there, and I need the cream. I know those 2 colors, but then what do I use besides that? And then what red do I want with that green? I don't know. So anyway, there's a lot of questions,
and a lot of plans and stuff that still has to happen.
Yes, and I need kind of a day to just do the dyeing, kind of wrap my head around that, and then I want to take the online color work class before I start the color work of the yoke. But anyway, then the other sweater again, but it's the same thing. I need to take the color work classes. Do you remember when you were up here for our the class that we did in July, and we went over, and Mark drove us over to Told, and he bought yarn for me to make a sweater for him, and the pattern that we picked is called Atlas by Jared Flood, and again, it's the same type of sweater where the whole yoke is color work, and so I need to take my class. I've also been thinking, when we met up at the beach, you gave me 2 skeins of our fingering weight Rambouillet, Replenish Rambouillet, and that you had dyed, and they're beautiful, kind of as a sort of a semi-solid, I think it's the chestnut color. I don't remember now what you called in the shop, but I think it's kind of a chestnut color, kind of a golden
that
color.
one. That's bourbon and suede.
Okay. And then the one that coordinates with it, which has that same kind of ochre color in it, plus some blue and gray and purpley pink, and very unusual. I love it. So I think what I want to do is make a shawl out of that. So I've been looking at patterns, but I have not settled on anything yet. And then just before we started talking before we called each other, we had been talking about the other sweater I was thinking of making is one called Calder Pullover by Rebecca Blair.
Oh yeah.
And it's a beautiful sweater. I don't know about this. I might be making a mistake, but it's an all over lace pattern. Yeah. But it really is a beautiful sweater. And I was interested in it because I have the yarn that they used for the pattern. It's the Ba Ram U Dovestone, and I thought it'd be, it might be kind of nice just to use.
Right.
I actually have the yarn, so I might use that. So I don't know. I have to.
That's not a bad idea. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I'm thinking of. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Okay. Well, that sounds like a good plan.
Yeah.
I still need to get started on my sweater with the crocheted yoke. I'm about halfway done with the crocheted yoke. And I haven't picked it up, but I don't really have any more plans that include. Well, that's not entirely true, but I don't have any in the near future plans that involve sweaters. So, but I think I might that might change as it gets colder.
Yeah, really.
I might decide I need something. But yeah, I have some weaving that's in my head to do. But yeah, knitting, I don't feel like I'm in a funk anymore. I just feel like the things I'm wanting to do are not sweaters at this moment. I have the one sweater I want, but it's a warmer weather sweater, so I'm not in a big rush now. Except I'd like to enter it into the Two Knitlit Chicks sweater, their sweater knit along. But that's the only reason that I would, that I would feel somewhat, like, oh, I need to get going on this. But I don't have anything else kind of in like that's burning a hole in my pocket, so to speak. Where sometimes I have had that, like, oh, I just had to get started on this. But I don't feel like I'm in a funk anymore. I just have other things. I want this jacket finished, and I have some gnomes to finish. Little, that kind of stuff is catching my attention a little bit more. So,
yeah. All right. Well, that's all I have for projects.
Okay.
So, Kelly, there's some events that are coming up. Let's talk about those.
Okay. So, we do have our winter weave along going on right now. It started October 15th, and people are in the chatting thread talking about their weaving and showing pictures. I haven't put up a finished object thread yet, but I will do that so that people can take a look at what other people have finished and post their finished object pictures. I haven't started weaving yet, but I have something on the loom that I've been hoping to get to. And then I have a couple of things planned. So that's going on, and it goes all the way until the end of March. So if you aren't ready to start something yet, don't worry. We'll be weaving along with you for a long time. And then we also have our Fix It or Nix It. And it starts November 1st, which, if I'm thinking correctly, should be, is that this weekend? Friday. Okay, so we're recording on Wednesday. So yeah, by the time people are listening to this, it will have started. And so, what are you thinking of doing for that, Marsha?
Well, I always have lots of ideas, but I think the first thing that came to mind was based on our discussion of adding the ribbon to the bands of cardigans. I think I'm going to do that. At least to one sweater. I might try and do all of them. I think my biggest problem or challenge is finding the ribbon, because the shop that was so great for that has closed.
Yeah.
Here in Seattle. So, but I think that's what I'm going to do. And then
someone posted an Etsy shop link in the discussion thread.
Yeah.
So that might be a good resource.
And I thought I would just Google too.
Yeah.
Like I could probably look around. There's probably must be Etsy, but then other stores that are selling ribbon.
Well, last time we talked, last episode, you mentioned that you were going to get your hair cut, and you were going to talk to your hairdresser about doing some embellishment with her sewing machine on your ribbon.
Yes, and she's interested in doing it.
Oh, that's cool. So you don't have to find anything fancy. You just have to find the color that you want.
Yeah.
Well, good.
So
how many sweaters? You said you're not going to do them all. How many sweaters do you have that are candidates for this?
10.
Wow.
I'm trying to think.
How many button cardigans you have? 10?
Yeah,
wow.
I have that. Because we made the acorn trail. That one doesn't gap that bad, but I made another one after that. I mean, I probably have. Okay, maybe that's too many. Let's be conservative and say 5 or 6.
Okay.
Because I kind of got out of the habit of making cardigans because they gap,
Or you made a couple that were just open front, right? Like is Recoleta is an open front one? Yeah.
But now that you say that, I am kind of curious. I have Little Wave. Maybe I don't have as many as I think I have. Oh, Lanata. It's that kind of a cream colored one with lace. It gaps. Blue Juno. I think it was just called Juno. Oh, I don't have that many. I'm looking back here. I did the first cardigan I made in a really long time was just a basic. It was just like a, like a blank slate kind of pattern, just a cardigan, and I made it striped.
Oh yeah.
And I just call it striped. That one I need to do it. I guess that's it.
Okay.
I thought I had a lot more sweaters than that, but I don't. So, so what is that, like 5 I have to do?
Yeah, I think so.
That's not so bad.
No, that's not
I can
so
do
bad.
that.
Well, you can at least identify, which ones you really want, and then if it works on the first one that you do, then you can, prioritize which others to do next.
Yeah. Oh, I also have another one, a summer cardigan, which I don't even really like that sweater, so that might be a, when it goes into the fix it or nix it category, it might just go in the nix it. I don't know, or I might redo that one, but I don't know.
Okay.
But anyway, so that's what I'm going to do. And then the other thing I was thinking of doing, and we talked about this before, but I made the swirl cardigan and I think I might unravel that and reknit it.
Okay.
I mean,
that yarn is worth unraveling for.
It is worth, yes. And let me just say, I don't think that I can unravel it and knit it in this time period, but I might unravel it and pick a pattern.
Right. No, that's not the idea. Yeah. Nix it just means you decide you're not going to keep it and you do whatever. Unravel it, give it away. Unravel it, put the yarn back in your stash. Yeah. Yeah, you definitely don't have to reknit something. All right.
And how about you?
Well, as you know, we've been doing some cleaning, putting things back now that the bedroom is done. All the painting is done and the electrical work is done and stuff. And so all of the things are out of the living room. They're all put away. They're not all put away in their permanent location, resting place, but they're put away. Most of the stuff is in a permanent location. It's back where it belongs. The sunroom is all cleaned out. And as I was doing that, I found some things that I didn't think I really had. I guess if I had looked on my project page in Ravelry, I might have seen this. But I have a pair of socks that I started kind of last minute, grabbed yarn to have him for a day of meetings at school. And they were not the right type of project. It was kind of like your cowl, the shared rib where it was ribbing, but the ribs kind of twist and travel along. And so I have about 6 inches of a sock that is like that I found. The needles are not in it anymore. I mean, I just took the needles out and left the live stitches. It's not even on stitch holders. So I have to decide what to do with that. Do I want to keep going on that sock? If so, I have to figure out where I am. I'm pretty sure that's going to be a rip out. That's going to be a nix it, I think. I found a pair of socks that I started on the 9-inch circulars and never finished because they were too small when I got to the point where I was going to put in the afterthought heel and toe. The socks were just too small. And so I need to decide what to do about those. I think I have 2 tubes. And they're just off of needles. They're just live stitches sitting in a bag. And then I have the socks that were from the sock blank. And I had I think I even maybe told people I was ripping that out on the episode.
Is this the sock blank that you bought at Stitches last year?
It was 2 years ago, and it was a never have I ever knit along. And I had never done socks 2 at a time, and so I bought the sock blank and started socks 2 at a time from a double sock blank at Stitches. And I got quite far before I didn't get all that far doing them 2 at a time. I maybe got a few inches in and decided that 2 at a time was not for me. And then I was doing them 1 at a time, and I got quite far on one of the socks. just rolling up the other ball, yarn into a ball.
Mm-hmm.
But the gradient is so long that it's kind of wasted on socks.
Mm-hmm.
It's like basically just a big giant, the gradient is orange, yellow into purple. It's really pretty gradient. It's really gorgeous. It goes from a deep orange to a more yellow orange to a more like a yellow, and then the yellow kind of fades into a purple. It really looks like sunset.
Mm-hmm.
And it's being wasted in a pair of ribbed socks because it's just a big giant orange cuff. It's pretty, but you don't see the gradient.
So do you have thoughts about what you're going to do?
No, I'm going to rip it out.
Oh.
I don't know what I want to make with it. I had forgotten I even had it. I sort of just put it out of my mind. It needs to be something. It needs to be something that needs a gradient.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a double. Like you should be knitting two things at a time, or knitting with two yarns held double. I guess you could do that. And it's really, what I'm going to have to do when I rip it out, I'm going to have a ball wound from the wrong end. Anyway, it's a project to rip this out and wind it back up in the right way.
Right.
And so maybe I just unravel the whole sock blank into two identical balls of yarn. And then the question is, do I even try to make something with it, or do I just destash it and let someone else do something with it? So, yeah, I don't know. It's a beautiful gradient, and it just seems like a waste, to put it into socks. It just wasn't taking up enough yarn.
Yeah.
Maybe if I made bigger socks.
And it seems like it's something that it should go like in a shawl, but do you really want to make another shawl?
Well, and so if I did a shawl, maybe I would do the gradient from one end to the other and then pick up the second ball and wind it backwards and go. You see what I mean?
Oh, right. Like go from the dark to the light,
and then
pick up the second ball and go light to the dark. So
and then it feels like what a waste. Here's a matched double sock blank.
Yeah. So I was wondering, could you do some weaving project with it? Make a great.
Yeah.
I don't even know. What
I could use it
because I don't know enough about weaving.
I could use it as a maybe like a warp. Yeah, I could use it as a weaving project. Do a gradient warp. I've never done that. Somebody's doing that in the winter weave along I saw, so that might be kind of a good idea. I hadn't thought about it, but yeah. So that's something I have to think about. It's one of those. That one is on the tipping point of just like someone else could use this yarn and make it into something beautiful.
You know what? Okay, Kelly, we're getting off. Well, we're on this topic, but I'm now going deeper into this than I really intended to. But when you're weaving, if you warp it, so you have your two gradients, right? And they're exactly the same. And so you warp the board, warp the loom, so it starts like, from the left side is the purple, and then it goes all the way to your yellow or orange or whatever your lightest color, whatever it is. And then when you weave and you're using the weft, right?
Right.
Is that what you're weaving with? You do the same thing where you start at the dark purple and go light. So when you on your, say you do a scarf or an afghan or something, I don't know how much of this yarn you have, but whatever your piece is.
Sock quantity.
Okay.
So like a little over 400 yards.
So you could probably make a shawl?
Maybe. I don't know. I haven't.
But whatever this thing is, this square, rectangular shaped, geometric shaped object is, when in theory it would start like the dark purple in the lower left-hand corner and it would end up with the lightest color, whatever the opposite end on the, but then it would have all these interplay of colors as it's moving through.
It would be really interesting. Yeah, it could be really interesting. Because of the color combination, there's some areas of it where it could turn out kind of muddy. You know, like purple and orange.
Yeah.
It's complementary colors. But no, I think it would be it's a definite possibility, and it would really be interesting. I would just have to think about how much I have
and the other thing I know, and another thing, this is now not weaving, but I'm seeing a lot of, and maybe this also applies to weaving. I'm seeing a lot of projects where they do a hat, say, or a sweater, and it's color work. So like, but it's like 2 colors. So you do like, you have a solid, and then you have some sort of variegated, or in your case, a gradient. Mm-hmm. So you do like a sweater that has a pattern of, you know, flowers going through it or something, and like the flowers are then the gradient, or the and then the other one, the background color, is solid. So like when I use 2 colors for a shawl, it's usually stripes. Mm-hmm. But this is actually color work, and I saw some hats, and it, like, that would be kind of a fun thing with a hat. Now I don't know if you would use both of them or not, but do color work, or do like double knitting. You know, with one side's the gradient and the other side is a solid. Right. Or the brioche, you know. That's another thought too.
Yeah.
So you'd have to add another color, but if it might go pretty quickly if you hold it double. But again, you're talking about a small object too, which you may not cover. You might not use up all that gradient. I mean, it's
for a hat.
But if you did a hat, you might have that same problem.
But a shawl, like with another 400 yards, that could be 800 yards. That would get you somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I might do something with it. I might not, but definitely the sock has to be ripped out and the yarn has to be managed in some way. And I think it's going to have to come out of its sock blank and be wound into 2 balls. Mm-hmm. Because just the unraveling process is going to be complicated.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, those are the things that I found, and then I am going to do the grosgrain ribbon on my Acorn Trail too. Mm-hmm. So I have some decisions to make, really, more than work. I have the work of the grosgrain ribbon button band, and then I have decisions to make for my other things. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
All right. And then, what else should we talk about? Oh, that's everything we talked about, our events.
Yeah, that's everything. I did want to remind
Okay.
people that if they're interested in becoming a patron, it's patreon.com/2Us to get to our Patreon page. And we have several different levels of patronage that you can choose there. So if you're interested, go ahead and take a look.
Yep. And I think I forgot where we were because I went off into a rabbit hole of what to do with your gradient yarn.
I could give it to you, Marsha.
Throw me a lifeline. Help me out of this rabbit hole.
Speaking of rabbits.
Mm-hmm. Oh, speaking of rabbits, I know where you're...
Yes, you have a rabbit that you need to finish too.
Yes, I'm sitting here in my bedroom at my desk, and I have my rabbit sitting in a basket, and he has like a big slash in his side where I've started sewing him up, and I haven't finished. I have like about a 2-inch little gap in his side that I need to sew up his body, and then knit his hind legs, and then a little bit of shaping to give him character. It's been so long since I've looked at the pattern, but I do remember that you then do little stitches to kind of hold his head together a certain way and his ears together a certain way to give him some expression. So, anyway, yes. Thank you for that reminder, Kelly. That's what support looks like.
It's kind of like your keys. Just as nice.
That's it. I'm divorcing you.
Oh my gosh.
That's not the only reason we divorced. I just want to make clear that
I'm sure people know that. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, I think
it didn't help though. Okay. Yeah. All righty.
I think we've exhausted the topics for this week.
Okay, we will talk in 2 weeks then.
All right.
Alrighty.
Bye.
Bye.